Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Not talking to your mic?
Hello.
I can hear you too.
Very good.
There we go. We are live. I want to welcome everybody to Pulaski Talks today on this fine Wednesday, March 20th. Hope you're doing well and enjoying the nice weather. Sitting with me today is Keith Pritchard. He's the treasurer of the what's the group? So Citizens for Prop 2. He's also I'll let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Keith, and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. We're going to see a delay, so you won't be able to hear that.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Keith Pritchard. I am born and raised here in the local Waynesville, St. Robert, Fort Leonard Wood community. A graduate of Waynesville High School in 1974. Went to college in Northwest Missouri and then graduate school down at LSU in Baton Rouge for banking school, and worked for Security Bank of Pulaski County in Waynesville, St. Robert. Been in the area most of my life.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Now, what we're talking about today is Prop 2 that's on the ballot, and we invited Keith to talk a little bit about it. But first of all, maybe you can talk a little bit about what exactly Prop 2 is from the strategic level.
Okay, well, the school funding, we're in a very unique school district. We're one of probably around 22 or less in the United States that has B2 type funding, but because the United States government owns such a large portion of real estate in our school district and our whole region,
right?
Fort Wood, 66,000 acres. The United States government doesn't pay sales or property tax.
Right.
So in lieu of property tax, they provide basic impact aid, and that would be true for a national forest, other types of government-owned property. And then B2, which is what this is referring to, has to do with specific heavily impacted military impact aid. And there are literally 22 school districts across the United States that currently qualify for that type funding.
Just 22.
22
I
in the nation.
More.
Yes, 22 in the nation.
I didn't realize that. That's like 1.4 billion Department of Education funds across the country.
And again, it's the United States government paying their fair share, if you will, to educate the military dependents. And to make up for their lack of property tax that they do not pay. But it's really directed toward the number of military impacted students, military related students, be they active DOD, even DOD civilian, but military related students.
I gotcha. Because you consider the amount of tax revenue you don't get if we were to get it from the, I don't know how many we have on post anymore, but that makes up the shortfall.
That's true. And it's also military-related students that live off post.
Right.
Even though they may or may not, most likely would be paying real estate taxes or personal property taxes if they own property off the state and are registered here, Missouri residents. But it's the government supporting the area that also supports the military by educating and taking care of our military dependents.
Now, considering that I don't remember what the size of the school budget is for what schools in our district does this funding support? Is it just the high school, R through 12, R through 6?
No, it's the whole district.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the whole district, and then it would for regular basic military impact aid, if you were a military student in the Dixon, Newburgh, Plato school district, and they report, that relationship, they're going to get the basic military support. Because of the heavily impacted aid, because Waynesville School District has such a large impact of military-related students, approximately 65% of our school district falls into this category, and then a couple other requirements to be eligible for those funds is one of the reasons there's just 22 of us across the nation.
Oh, gotcha. So that probably also explains why our levies are much lower than the preponderance of the districts in the state.
Absolutely. Our current tax levy right now is $2.95 per hundred, and the average across the state is over $4,
really?
about $4.15. And other school districts all across, the larger school districts, get up close to the $5 range in
Wow.
several cases, and we stand at $2.95 right now.
And this B2 funding also keeps us at that level. Because, by the way, it supplements our funding revenue or source. We don't have to increase the levies to compensate for it.
That's true. And this request is an increase in the levy by 10 cents.
Right.
Not 10%,
Right.
10 cents. So from $2.95 to $3.05. So it's a simple 10-cent increase, which would generate about $360,000 across the school district. But it then allows us to be eligible to continue to draw $8.5 million of B2 heavily impacted aid. So it's a $1 for every $1 in tax, we return $22 of federal money. And this is money that the federal government has already allocated.
Right.
And if we did not meet the criteria to get it, it just goes to other school districts.
Gotcha.
And they would get a bigger share.
So it's already there. So
it's already there.
And we qualify.
We do qualify.
Except for the levy amount.
We're very close on the levy amount. And that's the whole crux of this tax, is that under the rules, the United States government requires that we match 95% of the tax levy of like-kind school districts across our region. And right now we're at 95.14 or something like
getting
that.
Close.
We're very close.
Okay.
And if we drop below that, then we would fall out of the eligibility for funding and literally would walk $8.5 million would leave our district.
Wow.
So most of us don't like to pay more tax.
Oh, no.
Most of us don't like to pay the tax we have already. And I'm one of those.
Sure.
And I think most of those of us here in the Midwest would fall in that category. But there are times when it makes sense. I believe it makes sense in this case, and that's why I'm willing to support the issue and happy to talk about it.
That makes sense. The counterpart to that, and I brought it up in the forum or on the webpage a little bit, is that the school is a big entity with a big budget, and I can't remember exactly how big their budget and revenue streams are. But again, considering that it may not pass, now I'm not saying I'm voting or not, but what would, I asked the details, what would happen if the school budget was shorted $8.5 million? What's the one to end list that they have to take off the block, Yeah.
Well, that would come down to the school board to determine that, okay, now we have a budget. I think they're, and I could find it here somewhere, I think it's around $90 million is their budget. They employ close in the neighborhood of just around 1,000 people.
Right.
Second largest employer in our school district. So reducing that $8.5 million would be a pretty significant increase.
That's 10%.
Or decrease.
That's almost 10%.
So there would have to be some serious negotiations and conversations about can we still employ the people that we do? Can we still provide the same level of services, and what needs to cut? Basic math would tell you something's going to get cut. Something
has to get cut. But understanding any organization that big's got some fluff coming from personal experience.
Absolutely.
And they've got some expensive, I call them, we had some expensive expenditures, the football fields, it's almost collegiate level football field and this and that. And for somebody like me, I see that and I say, well, maybe we can afford a few cuts here and there. But I think it's on the onus of the school district to get into the details exactly. Okay, if we don't pass this, what's the real nuts and bolts of what would happen?
Yeah. Very fair questions, and questions that should be asked, and questions that deserve an answer.
Yeah.
And if that were to be the case, and we did lose $8.5 million that left, the school board would then have to take and redesign their budget.
Yeah.
And would have to then make those cuts. We, the citizens, would then and should engage with our school board members and administrators to say, Where are we going to take it?
Right.
This is what I think is important, but maybe this part isn't quite as important.
That conversation would have to be held.
That conversation would have to be held, deserves to be held in, in a public forum to allow people to have input.
Well, sure.
And then those people that are elected by to be school board members have to make tough decisions.
Yeah.
And it won't all be popular, but that's part of the game. That's the way it works.
That's right. It's not a popularity contest. It's about our tax dollars and put them to great use.
That's right.
Now, what's the timeline? I understand when the vote happens. It was April 2nd, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then what happens then? Maybe you could, educate us a little bit.
Well, I think the B2 funding cycle runs there's a delay in it. We are qualified for this year because we've met the 95.14 or whatever range.
Right.
So I actually think it would be most likely the following year or even the following year when this would get when those cuts would come into place.
So we have some reaction time between now and the D-Day, so to speak.
There would be reaction time and planning time.
Right.
And time for conversations on what we can do and what we can't do.
Gotcha.
So it's not immediate. It would not happen this year. So there would be time to do some scheduling.
Are you aware of the plan for spending the $8.1 million if it does pass? Is there a specific? I seen a couple comments about the asphalt driveways, school security, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, the funding is restricted to specific types of spending.
Okay, so it's like fence funding for the federal government.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's improvement of securities, facilities, and maintenance.
Right.
Are primary requirements of it.
So it couldn't go to hiring a whole new squad of teachers. It could be just focused on the maintenance and security and facilities and stuff like that.
For example, what have we been using B2 funds are, and these were all used for mainly structural type repairs. The Waynesville Middle School renovation was B2 funding.
Right.
The sixth grade center behind the what was the high school football field in my day, and now the middle school football field. Williams Elementary on Post got a renovation. Parker Fine Arts, which was also a portion B2 and a portion of a grant that came through the government because it was helping to support preschool children. Which there's a real problem across our country with families being able to properly afford to keep their children in preschool environments so they can go out and get a job and stay in the employment field, but still know that their children are being properly taken care of. The ninth grade center was a building also taken care of. The transportation facility building was rebuilt in the last year, and then two FEMA shelters that were dual use buildings, but for emergency help, hurricane, tornado, bad weather events. They're safe spaces, but also large rooms for the school. Those are all areas where the B2 funds have.
So you can actually touch and feel.
Yeah, that's right.
What we're getting our money's worth.
That's exactly right. And one of the things I would say is I was fortunate enough to have served our state as an aide, civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army for a 10-year period. And it culminated here just this last fall, but we had the National Conference of Civilian Aides to the Secretary here last May, and representatives from all across the United States and U.S. territories. And we had a couple of events at the Waynesville High School and the Career Center. That's where we had the salute to service for
I remember that.
young students that are going into the military services of all branches. So all of those people at that conference attended that. We had the TRADOC commanding general here who toured our school that day.
Really?
And to have him to be able to come in and tour the school and walk around and meet students and met with our junior ROTC program. And it was, let me tell you, he went away impressed.
Really?
And others did as well, that we have top-notch things here. And not only are we taking care of our military dependents, but we're taking care of our children. Yeah. All students benefit from this because those facilities serve each and every student in the building, whether you're from a farm family out on the edge, or you're from a military student that's here for 2 years.
And the fence line doesn't matter. It's affecting all the kids on and off an installation.
No question about that. In our community in rural Missouri, we're one community.
Sure.
Yes, since 9/11, the base feels like it's a little more separated before because there's a little more security concerns than we've dealt with in the past. But we're really one community, and we always have been.
Oh, I have to agree with you that because it's the partnership at various levels is just really incredible. If we got down to the details, and I think either one of any of the mayors could testify to that. Are you aware of any concerns about potential delays of the funding reaching our schools? You know how budgets go with the capital, and
no, this money is appropriated to my knowledge, and we should not expect any funding delays whatsoever in any of the school funding channels. Not this one or basic military impact aid.
Well, at least it's not as held up as some other funding streams.
Yeah, this one's a little too hot to take away.
And what an impact that would make if it didn't. I mean, going into how the money can be spent, talk about the facilities piece for this bundle of not cash, but this funding. You talked about the facilities. I think I've seen somewhere on the parking lot or something like that. Big ticket items.
Yeah, it is, and it's mainly facilities and facilities maintenance. And one of the larger ones are our facilities and the air conditioning, the heating, the cooling systems, which these are just massive units in these large buildings, and with amazing price tags that come with them. And we always talk about the new high school, new high school. Well, that was 2006.
That's cool.
2005, 2006. So we're right at 20 years on our new building,
wow.
Our new high school building, which is a little hard for us to imagine. But what an amazing facility it is. And but 20 years on a heating and cooling system, you're starting to wear down. It's no different than your house. So some scheduled maintenance and repair, planning and scheduling for those. The school district does hold back in some reserves to maintain itself for any hiccups whatsoever in the school district. And they I believe it's just under 4 months worth of operating revenues, which the dollar amount would sound like a lot of dollars because it's a $90 million budget, but 4 months, three and a half to 4 months is really not that long. And if we apply it to our own personal houses and say, okay, what's our money that we need in case our heating system goes out, or we have a utility problem or something, well, 3 or 4 months is adequate. Yeah. But it's not a whole lot of extra money. And we do meet the guidance of the Missouri Department of Education as far as reserves, but we don't have piles and piles of money around that would last a year or more. We're really at just under 4 months.
What would you consider the most pressing need for that money? Of all the things that it's tied to as far as fixing or addressing? The HVAC or?
I believe we have pretty significant issues with HVAC, and that's what I've been hearing in the high school, approaching 20 years, and then going out and beginning to seek what those costs are going to be and the maintenance of them. And technology has improved it so much in 20 years.
Oh, absolutely. And efficiencies.
So the efficiency and the technology to improve to the upgraded system, when and if those structures we have go down, you have to be prepared for that, but it takes quite a little while to ramp up and say, here's the system we're looking for. This is what we want to buy. How long does it take to get it if this goes down?
You got to program that money for years and outlays.
And when you have a building, we have 5,800, just under 6,000 total students across the enterprise of the Waynesville, St. Robert, Fort Leonard Wood school system. It's a big enterprise, and we can't wait for a couple of months and have our children where they're not properly heated and cooled, and the facilities can't operate.
It's a must fund.
It's a must fund each and every day, and whatever the problem is, it has to be fixed. So it's a big job.
I can't imagine from firsthand experience on the budget side, but how troublesome and what an impact those kind of big ticket items can make on your planning. It can derail a whole year's budget if you haven't planned ahead. Yeah. Now, I don't know if you follow politics. I try not to, and I don't like to watch it on TV. But one of the parties, I should say, one side of the aisle is really big. It seems to be on doing away with the Department of Education. Therefore, I infer doing away with that funding stream. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I just can't imagine how that would work.
I don't know either, but you hear them talk.
I've heard it for years, and it stretches my mind, to be honest. And if that were to happen, it would just change names. The school systems across our country would continue under a different umbrella or something. So you might change, instead of driving a Chevrolet, you're driving a Honda or vice versa, but it's still a car. So the car has to be paid for, and it has to be funded, and it has to go forward. So I understand that's a highly debated topic. And there are things that go on in the national level in public education about, I don't like spending money on this type of function or teaching this type of book. And those are legitimate conversations that everybody deserves to be involved with and need to work with their school departments and school boards on. But the school itself needs to go forward. Education of our students is really what's going to keep our country thriving and moving forward. And if we want to put a military context to it, which it's much more than military in our district, because there's a lot of, as I would call myself, just a regular Missourian. I grew up here. I have relationships with the military, and my father was 2 years active and 28 years civil servant, and but anybody in our district has an affiliation with the military, whether we want to call it that way or not, because that's the 800-pound elephant in our economy.
Absolutely. And that, there it goes to the question, though. Now, on your opinion, you got empty nesters. Mm-hmm. Some of the senior citizens are questioning, why am I still paying for this? And maybe that's not your lane. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit. I understand it's all of our children, all of our responsibility, community first. But if somebody's saying, listen, I've been paying this personal property tax for years. I'm tired of paying for them. I don't have any kids in school. I haven't had kids or grandkids in school. Mm-hmm. What's the answer to somebody like that?
Well, I think that's a fair conversation, and it doesn't bother me at all to have it. And Missouri's formula for continually taxing the vehicle you drive year after year is a topic that's worth conversation. And that doesn't bother me at all to have that. But from our viewpoint on this end, from this side of the desk on this issue, we can't control that.
Right.
And we can have an opinion. Each and every one of us are entitled to our opinion and say, there's a better way than to tax my car that I paid for 3 years ago, and I'm paying for it for 10 more years on our property tax. It would just be replaced with a different type of tax. And maybe that conversation should be had and a different way should be found. We're just working with the rules they've given us.
Now that makes sense to me, because you have a set of rules. We have a requirement. In order to fulfill that requirement with the funding that we need, here's the funding streams were available to us. And the school packages that together, prepares to say these are available to us. Yes, so maybe a 10 cent hit on your property taxes per 100. However, money's already been allocated.
Right. And here's I think a response to a way to think about that.
Okay.
It is the formula we're given. We didn't ask for it. It's and all school districts have it
in Missouri.
In Missouri, okay. Right? This is Jefferson City driven. But if you're a renter, here's just 3 or 4 examples. If you're a renter and you have $60,000 worth of motor vehicles or personal property that's taxed, and the tax rate on that's about $19,800 if it's $60,000 of value, that's this increase would add up to $20 a year or $1.67 a month. Okay, let's roll that forward to something a little more as our home values have increased. Right. And let's go all the way to a $400,000 house. And that would be be a higher price than the average in our market for sure. That assessed valuation on a $400,000 house would then be $76,000, and high-end house might have high-end cars in the driveway.
Sure.
So $100,000 worth of vehicles and toys that they pay personal property tax on for $33,000, that would add up to $109 a year.
That's top tier.
$9.08 if you have a $400,000 a month.
Right.
$9.08 a month. If you have a $400,000 house and $100 worth of vehicles and toys, that's what this tax is going to cost you. And it is an increase.
Yeah,
I acknowledge that.
But my coffee costs more than that.
I understand. And that gets us $8.5 million that we're receiving now. We'll continue to receive it. And it's $1 for $22 in revenue. That's just good math.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about the not antagonist, but the argument that we should be, not we, but we're a red state, overwhelming red. I admit to anybody, I'm a flaming independent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't pick sides, but as a red state, usually the platform is to cut taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And you almost think that somebody would stand up in the audience and say, let's give that money back. But it's kind of like I said, it's already spent. It's already been appropriated.
This money has been appropriated. It will go to the 22 school districts or that qualify,
Right.
or the remaining ones that qualify in the end. It's not going to be cut.
Okay.
And could Congress change it?
Sure,
Yes,
sure.
they could. But that's not the case here.
Gotcha.
And I go back to the fair share question, and that's where this comes up, because the 90, where we have to be within 5% of the comparable group. So we're at 95.14. So we're 0.14 above the threshold of losing these dollars. That's the reason for this tax. And this tax we're asking for is 10 cents. So we would take the $2.95 per hundred, take that to $3.05. And with that scenario, we're still, even in our local area, we would be the same as Crocker, within 1 penny of Crocker. And Rolla, Springfield, Lebanon, Nixa, all would be significantly higher than us, even with this. And then one other comparison would say, okay, if we choose not to pass this 10-cent tax, but we want the same funding level, and that's a fair question to say, would we or not? But if we did, it would take a $2.29 increase to match that.
So it would be up to what?
$5.24.
And that would bring us on par with who?
Oh, we would be one of the highest in the state.
Oh, wow.
Very much top tier. So it just doesn't, that's not good math in any way, shape, or form.
That's not a good place to be.
And we're, for a modest increase, we're still going to have top tier schools,
right?
Outstanding facilities. We're going to send the message to our elected officials and the Pentagon that we care about our students, the Department of Defense students, and our local students.
Sure.
This is just as much for my children as it was for a staff sergeant's child on Fort Leonard Wood, or anyone else. We all benefit together. These facilities are here in our district. And we can get that, if you will, $5.24 example for $3.05. It's a bargain, in my opinion. And I acknowledge and I respect anyone that says, I just don't agree with you. I think that's more than I should have to pay. Well, that's you're entitled to your opinion.
Sure.
And that's the way it works. We're hoping that we can show this makes enough sense,
right?
And that it's good value. And it's money that will be used here in our area to develop and continue to move our community forward. And it's a good use of money.
Now, if I was to, I have to agree with you on all the points. You know, the logic makes sense, but there's still the outliers that may say, now, if I want to know exactly what we have to cut if we don't get this, that's probably the onus is on the school board to provide that kind of information.
Yeah, the onus is on the school board. I'm just a citizen. I have no vote in it whatsoever. But yeah, that would have to be with the administration and the school board to get in there and say, okay, where do we cut $8 million? Yeah. Where do we cut it? And can it be done? Yes. Would it hurt? Yes.
It'd sting a little bit, but it's just like, as a contingent, what happens if it doesn't pass? And I like to dig a little deeper, maybe reach out to we got some newly campaigning board members and stuff, and what their thoughts on that too.
Yeah, and I think the obvious would be personnel is the largest
Sure.
expense of the budget, and true of most large enterprises. So most likely there would be some reduction in staff.
Sure.
And then on top of that, there would have to be some facilities and others. I mean,
Sure. Deferred
maybe
maintenance
some deferred maintenance, maybe it's extracurricular activities, and
Sure.
we would hope that it would be spread across so that
Right.
the pain would be reduced the most, the best, be the best use of the money we have.
Absolutely.
And again, I respect anyone that says I pay enough.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but I think this is investment dollars.
I can say, I think, in my opinion, looking at my tax bill, I was going to bring it down here, but it's not. It's already up there. This is only going to nudge it a little bit. It's not what brought it to this point, but we have some top of the line facilities, a top of the line community that's engaged in partnerships between the installation and across the county, and there's a cost to that, a practical cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
There certainly is, and we're a Class 6 school in the state of Missouri, out here in the middle of the Ozarks, in a very rural setting. We are the largest category of school districts in the state of Missouri.
Really? So that's the big 6.
We are the top of the line. We're a Class 6. So it's a big enterprise and it's a big business. But of 10 cents increase, a very modest 10 cents in my opinion, to get $8.5 million, and just to keep us moving, I think that's good business.
We use I won't name them. We have a streaming tool upstairs, but we noticed the school district's placing a lot of ads and stuff like that on media and stuff like that. But whoever's doing those ads is doing a great job, because one of the things they focus on is bringing highlighting the results of this kind of thing for others to consider making Pulaski County their home.
True.
So these look at what we offer and opportunities. Now, I've seen a couple of videos on the citizens page and stuff like that, and usually I'm the first one to say we need to remove emotion out of it. Let's look at numbers. It's kind of a mindset. Take emotion out of the equation. But however, when somebody's looking for a place to settle down between Kansas City, Springfield, and St. Louis, and they see how we are like a beacon for good things, I can see how this could draw the best of the populace to come to us.
Anyone that's lived here very long or traveled up and down the interstate or dealt with friends in Columbia or Springfield or Kansas City or St. Louis, and they travel up and down I-44, and they say you're from Waynesville, and they say, wow, I know that school building. That is amazing.
And it's right
and
there.
Our career center is amazing.
And Ozarks Technical College right there.
Absolutely. And the career center, which teaches practical trades that we need all across our country, be they welding, air conditioning. If you want to be a news broadcaster, they have its own television system there. Computer tech. Boy, do we need computer techs in this world, and I don't see that ever ending.
No.
But those type trades are vitally important, and this helps fund that.
Oh, absolutely. And I gotta appreciate their efforts to really market what they're doing with this, and it made me feel better about it. But it still begs the question that I'm going to bring back to the board: what if?
Yeah.
What's the plan if? Because there may be some outliers out there, and usually in the mid-April elections, a very poor turnout, which hopefully will be better this year.
I hope so too.
2 or 3 votes can sway it.
I agree, and I also believe that sometimes in America we get comfortable and we don't exercise or realize how important our right to vote is.
Absolutely.
And I would ask everyone to come out and vote, whether you're for it, against it, or whatever. Make your voice be known, because that's how America works.
That's the way we express it. It isn't screaming into a microphone or getting on a podcast. If you want change, the real change is to get out there and vote on the items.
Yeah,
there's a couple of very important items on this ballot. As a matter of fact, funding related. We won't get into that, but it's definitely worth people's attention.
Here's a couple of statements about how Waynesville's revenue compares to other state average. So, as a percentage of revenue for the school district, from the state of Missouri, Waynesville gets 40% of its budget from the state. The state average is 33%. We're getting 7% more than the average from the state of Missouri.
Really?
Then we go to federal dollars. The state average for federal funding is 8%. Waynesville gets 35%.
Wow.
And then local revenue, which is our local tax that we pay, Waynesville's taxpayers, like all of us here,
Sure.
pay 25% of the revenue. The state average, the taxpayers pay 59%.
Holy smokes.
We get a good deal here.
Yeah.
And 10 cents increase is a very modest increase when you compare that there. We're getting a good deal for our education.
It sounds like that to me, especially.
Yeah. So that's my comments that I would give anyone that says, I just don't want to pay more tax. I don't either, but if you're talking about a $10 increase per month,
yeah,
that's something most of us can find a way to do for the benefit of our children, our future children, and our community. That's correct.
Now, before I sign off, Dennis Hutchison, he's a good friend of mine, great person. Mm-hmm. Who's this? Do you know who the CFO by name is at the school?
Hillary, the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer would be Aaron Harrison.
Female or male?
Male.
Okay.
Aaron Harrison, of course. Okay. Yeah. Hillary Bales is our superintendent. Okay. Marianne Ward is the public affairs officer, so she could filter or direct any questions for different departments. She can help direct that.
I'm just going to have to assume that all their contact information is on their website.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they're happy to respond to questions. And, I would say that this Citizens for Prop 2 committee, we have school employees and stuff that are on it and regular citizens like myself and others, but no school funds have been funded, been appropriated for this. It's been private funds for anyone, and anybody that's working on this is not working on it during school time.
Sure.
And we're trying to comply and stay in our lanes of traffic and support the issue privately as individuals, and the school system itself stays out of it.
Well, it's obviously, from what I've seen, it's a passionate drive amongst those that are supporting this and driving this. It definitely got my attention and it had me engaged, and I hope the others that are watching this and that are watching it later will definitely engage on the topic one way or the other.
Thank you very much.
Sir, do you have anything you want to follow up with before we close out the show?
No, I've enjoyed the conversation, and I would ask anyone that has questions, reach out. The school system's happy to respond. Reach out to myself or other committee members, and we'll go to the experts and get you an answer.
There we go.
And then you can decide whether you like the answer or not. That's the way it works.
Transparency is key, that's for sure. Now, we do have a telephone number at the bottom. It's 573. I'm reading the ticker, 408-0339. If you do have a question you'd like to bring up to talk to about with Mr. Pritchard and me, we'll stay on the line for another minute. We'll mute the mic so we can talk about everybody in private. So if the phone rings, we'll pick it up. Well, I'll lead on. Well, everybody, we're going to close out the show on thank you for tuning in, and especially to our sponsors. Our gold sponsor, of course, for the week is Prue Law Office down in Waynesville. For any legal advice you may need, we hope you'll seek them out. They've been a golden sponsor for us since the beginning. So thank you to the Mark Prue and the Prue Law Office down in Waynesville, Missouri, and to all the other sponsors you see on the bottom right of the screen. We thank you so much. And without further ado, Mr. Pritchard, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you putting it together and your business schedule.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later. Until next show. Don't forget this next week, we have, or this Saturday at 4:30, I believe, we have our interview with Stacy Ball, candidate for Pulaski County Sheriff. He'll be in our studios asking some questions. So if you have questions for Mr. Ball, have them ready. Get on Facebook, call in, and we'll get you listed and ready to go. We'll see y'all, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.